Hello YouTube, this is Sam Gerrans from Qur'anite.com. Today is Sunday 13th of November 2016, and today the subject is that of personal safety, perhaps even particularly my personal safety. I receive a fair number of messages expressing concern for my health or well-being, and I appreciate those sentiments. A lot of people, especially people who are in predominantly Islamic environments, whether those be within the West or in other countries, are very aware of psychopathic and extremely unhinged elements within those communities, and it is not some sort of paranoid conspiracy theory. These people do go out and kill people. They do it regularly enough for it to be a concern. But I really want to just state my case on this. I appreciate greatly the comments and of support and of concern. It may not surprise you to know that I had thought about this before I put my name to this work and actually sunk my entire career in order to do this work. I knew what I was getting into. My wife and I, to use a Christian metaphor, we counted the cost. We sat down and worked out what is more important: our personal safety. I use safety in inverted commas here because I do mean it with a soupçon of irony, or doing the right thing, doing our ṣalāt, our duty. And our considered opinion, and it's not because we're particularly generous, it's because we want the best, was that serving God is the best investment. So while I do appreciate these thoughts, I don't quite see it that way. The Qur'an says that there is no safety but in communication of God and his messages, and that's the way that I see it. Now, we have, of course, a certain amount of wild-eyed, unhinged, psychopathic nutters running around the place, dressed in what they think is Islamic garb, shouting Allahu Akbar, etc. However, they're not my main concern. I mean, they are a concern from a point of view of blind power, from the point of view of, I suppose, what somebody like Soros or Kissinger would have called useful idiots. But we have a lot of highly trained, highly intelligent, extremely well-funded psychopaths running the world. And from a risk management point of view, they're a far greater concern. I'm just going to read a little bit. It's from the intro to my book, which, as ever, you can download for free using the button on the top right-hand corner. Quote, "While many people are afraid of criticizing the religion of Islam, I regard such concerns in a broader context. For me, brand Islam is just one among many streams of human energy being directed towards confluence and useful conflict by those who understand realpolitik. If it were not required as an agenda item, Islam would not have been given its present form or imported into the West. I do not regard brand Islam as a cause, but almost entirely an effect. It is an effect like feminism, the cult of sexual license and perversion, the destruction of the family, the institution of dumbed-down education, mediocrity is the new excellence, the degeneration of cultural standards, or the promotion of distractions such as Hollywood and sports. If there is one thing of which I am completely sure as concerns the traditionalist, it is that when it comes to the larger game, he is a pawn and not a player. And I have greater concerns than how one particular group of unthinking people allows itself to be manipulated, given a world in which there are so many such groups of pawns that we are drowning in them. I am not looking to reform or influence quote-unquote Islam, but neither will I be intimidated out of using my mind by people who cannot or will not use theirs. The strategists who have given brand Islam some time on the playing field run many, many projects, some of which seem contradictory, but enough of which have the extermination of the majority of the world population as a mid-term goal for a sensible man to consider it a credible threat. And if I do not fear such people or their plans more than I do God, the traditionalist may rest assured that being individually killed by him and his intellectually mediocre co-religionist pawns is no more intimidating to me than is the prospect of being caught up in a planned mass cull at the hands of highly organised interlocking cabals who do control strategy." End quote. So that's really my stance on it. The next point I'd like to make in this regard is that we all have an allotted time. If you've been brought up in the West, as was I, we are somewhat separated from the concepts of birth and death. However, for myself, I happen to have actually delivered two of my children physically at home. So I've seen birth. I have also prepared the mother of a friend of mine, or helped prepare her body after she died in the hospital. So I've seen death. I've touched it with my own hands. And death isn't a mistake. It's not something that just happens to people. Whoops, you died, or you made some sort of error. No. You're given a life. God gives you an allotted span. And secret services, undereducated, extremely emotional, highly manipulable people running around shouting things, that doesn't make any difference to this. The great tragedy is not being hurt or killed or something. The great tragedy is dying of old age in front of the television, having never done what you were supposed to do. So, am I blasé? No, I'm not blasé. However, I just put this into a context where I personally think there are bigger and more important things to be concerned about, like going to meet my Maker with a list of excuses. I read 3:156 through 158. "O you who heed warning, be not like those who are indifferent to warning, and say of their brethren when they travel through the land or are on an expedition, had they been with us they would not have died or been killed, that God might make that a sorrow in their hearts. And God gives life and gives death, and God sees what you do. And if you are killed or die for the cause of God, pardon from God and mercy are better than what they amass. And if you die or are killed, to God will you be gathered." That's 3:156 through 158. That's fairly clear. Pardon from God and mercy are better than what they amass. Who are they? Who are we talking about? Well, I mean, at this time, they have trillions of dollars. They own the entire world. However, the way I explain it to myself is that 1 cent, as it were, in eternity is worth more than all the possible wealth in temporality. It simply is. I mean, if we're talking about investment, then this is the best investment. So I'm not doing this because I have some sort of death wish or wish to antagonize a lot of highly emotional, highly combustive people. No, I want the best reward, and I recommend everyone go for the best reward. This isn't something which is divided by giving it. It's something which multiplies by giving it. There's no limit on the beneficence, the generosity, or the wealth of God. There isn't. I recommend everyone grab as much of it as they can with both hands. On a separate point about those who kill believers, they have hell, and I include in that remit all those who murder people in the name of religion, especially those people who stone people, well, not especially, but including those people who stone people to death, citing non-Quranic texts. The Qur'an is clear, and here we have at 4:93, "And whoso kills a believer intentionally, his reward is hell, he abiding eternally therein. And God is wroth with him and has cursed him and prepared for him a tremendous punishment. Now, on a very slightly different tack but related one, I personally believe that Western secret services represent a greater threat to me than do, the sort of typical traditionalist person. There are many decent people among the traditionalists. They're not by any means all crazy, but they do have crazy people among them. However, the Western secret services also have a lot of crazy people among them. My point is that it makes no difference to the plan of God. We know in the Qur'an that they scheme and God schemes, and God is the best of schemers. There's no proviso on this. There's no sort of caveat, oh yes, but this doesn't count if you happen to be living in the 21st century. This is a fact. Now, Western secret services created Islam. They certainly created this fundamentalist religion. And in my opinion, they would be far more concerned about what I'm doing than your average unthinking Muslim. And I accept entirely that there are a lot of thinking Muslims. In fact, I'll get to that point a little bit later on in this. And the reasons why I'm dangerous, I think, are firstly that I don't fall for the religion trap. You see, typically, white boy reads the Qur'an, embraces this religion, which has got nothing to do with it, has quite a lot of questions, but keeps them to himself, and basically just does the gymnastics 5 times a day and thinks that that's all there is to it and doesn't do anything else. Now, I reject any monopoly rights by Islam over the Qur'an, and I do so by exposing this religion along its fundamental fault line. And the way I do it is that I demonstrate, not because I have a long beard or that I have a degree from such and such and such and such, but I've used what's known as reason and logic and brought my evidence to prove that this religion is irreconcilable, actually, with the Qur'an. So I really pulled away the rug from underneath this thing. So that's dangerous. That's a problem. If I were merely a mullah of some kind, well then obviously I can be just ignored or shut up. If I were an Orientalist, i.e. if I were somebody who regards the Qur'an as something Muhammad created, well then I can be dismissed on that basis. But I am neither of those things. I believe the Qur'an, and moreover, I'm applying Quranic principles in my methodology and in my practice. So I'm a little bit more awkward. I also expose Islam as a weapon of the New World Order to destroy the West. I don't know if other people are doing this. I don't spend an awful lot of time poring over other people's sites, to be honest with you, because I'm busy with my own stuff. I hope other people are getting this. And certainly among Muslims, they understand this. So it's not an original thought, but I make that point and I make it clearly. I'm also dangerous because I provide a methodology for proving my points. Anyone who's taken the time to read the introduction to my book can see this. It's not rocket science. All I've done is applied a Western reason and methodology to form a system of hermeneutics which doesn't really depend upon traditions or opinions. Part of my problem with people, say for example, including people like Parvez, and I like some of what Parvez says, is that it's all really just mullah worship, fundamentally. It's that, you either like this person over that person. With what I've done, I actually provide the tools by which you can beat me. I provide the tools by which you can prove me wrong on any of the points that I've made. And my position is, if you can prove on a pantextual basis any of these points better than I have done, I will embrace your point of view. This is Hanif. This is what inclining to truth means. It doesn't mean that we have our little point of view and we fight and defend it no matter what. Nor does it mean we're pushed around and have no point of view. What it means is that you use your reason, you hold on to truth on the basis of that reason. However, if somebody defeats you, I use that word in the best possible sense, you thank them. and you move forward on that basis. This is how real science, I'm not talking about scientism, I'm talking about actual science. This is how actual science is supposed to work. So this methodology isn't dependent upon Sam Gerrans and how intelligent or unintelligent he may or may not be. Once you see it, once you read it, once you get it, anyone can apply this, and I appeal to people to do this, including the traditionalist. Another reason why I am dangerous is because, as I say, I believe in the Qur'an. I'm not coming in from the outside. I'm not a Christian apologist. I believe in the Qur'an so much I've staked my life, as I'm sure some of those people listening to this channel understand, on its promises. Now, you can deny that or not deny it, but it's a fact. My last point is that I'm kind of irrelevant, me personally, because this idea, you can't stop an idea whose time has come. You cannot. And I'm so convinced of this. And the reason is that almost all of my supporters are Muslims. These are people who are sick of the mullahs. I mean, this is a bit off script, but what was meant to happen with this realpolitik movement of bringing Islam into the West was that Muslims were supposed to basically either become radicalized, sort of ISISized, or they were supposed to become degenerate westernized. What this work does is that it allows Muslims to engage with the Qur'an and yet be free of the religion and serve God, and do so by engaging in that part of the Western benefit which they've gained from living in the West. Let's be honest. The West is superior at this time, or at least was superior. I would say that it started to decline rapidly in the 1960s, but there's still a residual superiority in the Western academic and reasoned approach to things that Muslims who come from or people who've come from Islamic countries and living in the West now, and especially second generation Muslims, they have the tools to get this now. And so, in a way, there's a confluence of things, and all I've done is recognize the historical influences at work, and I was just ready at this particular time. So it's not about me. You kill me, okay, so what? So another person is dead. But I make my work available free, and there have been thousands upon thousands of downloads. You can't put this genie back in the bottle. It ain't going back in. So in a way, killing me is almost irrelevant because I've done the work now. My work provides a methodology which allows us to have actual evidence, proof. So once a person gets this, and it will be a few intelligent men who will spend the time to go through what I've done, and I encourage them to do that, but I encourage them to better what I've done. I'm not intimidated by that in the slightest, but I will judge on the basis of actual results, not, oh, I've got some idea, do you think this could mean that? No, I mean, this could mean anything. Bring me your evidence. Show me on a pan-textual basis, and then we can see. Now, does that mean that every single point can be proven on this? What was Pharaoh's cup made of? Was it made from perspex or was it made from plastic? I mean, it doesn't really matter. So there are things which don't matter. But on these big issues, and especially I think the ṣalāt thing was something which operated as a hammerlock on any kind of forward process or progress, as with the zakāt. And that work has been done. I'm personally convinced that the values that I have for those two things are correct. And this was the stranglehold that the mullahs had over the minds of the people. And if you are seriously minded, if you do have an academic bent, please do go through my work on this and understand it. And you will find that a lot of things do slot into place. Now, going back to the getting killed issue, this work that I've begun will continue because of the downloads. With me or without me personally, it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't. I'm not, waiting to be thanked. My reward is with God, and that's why I'm doing this. And just to put this into some sort of perspective, 60 million Russians and others were killed by the Bolsheviks in the 20th century. Millions died or are dying as we speak in New World Order wars. Millions are prevented by poverty or starvation from having any sort of opportunities in life. I have the background, and thanks be to God, I have the intelligence to do what I'm doing. Yeah, okay, I'm taking some risks. Yes, I've lost my career. There's no question about it. I'm never going to be able to work in any kind of intelligent environment again, because whenever I go for a job, they look me up online and that's it. I just don't hear from them again. But okay, we're all going to what I call the zinger. In butcher's shops, you have that fluorescent strip often that catches flies. I call it a zinger. We're all going to the zinger, ladies and gentlemen. I don't feel afraid. I feel privileged. So it's not that, oh Sam, I'm really worried that this bad thing could happen to you. I'm worried for everyone in this world who doesn't serve God. They are the ones who should worry. There is no safety, there is no security but in communication of God and his messages. I'm grateful that I, despite all of my mistakes in life and despite the difficulties of this, that I've been called to this. Or put it another way, I agreed to do it. I could have just been another one, steamrolled into the ground. And if I die, when I die, then, and I've had the opportunity to do this, the last thing going through my mind is going to be gratitude. For the record, I'm not suicidal, have no suicidal tendencies whatsoever. So if you find, if I get discovered with 3 double taps to the back of the head, I didn't do that. Now, to kind of expand this subject slightly, when I think some people speak about concern for me, and I've had this from a lot of people, and that's really why I'm addressing it, I think that in a lot of cases, and I can't speak for everyone, and I don't have a window into other people's minds or hearts, but I'm just saying, talking about my perception, I think what people are at least as concerned about is what other people will think. That's really it. People are conformist. They're afraid to stand up. They're afraid to speak out. They're afraid of loss of friends. They're afraid of lost business opportunities. And believe me, if you stand up and do what I'm doing, those things will happen. Family, friends, opportunities, you don't fit in anywhere. The Muslims don't like you because you're not, as they see it, a Muslim. The world doesn't like you because they see you as being a Muslim. There is no funding for what I'm doing. There's no George Soros front, wanting to funnel big money into the kind of thing that I'm doing. You're completely on your own. And all you have, or what you have, is you have your faith in God alone. That's what you have. And people go, I don't know. What they want is a few rituals, to go to the mosque once a week, meet up with their friends, say inshallah, assalamu alaikum, etc., and go home and basically get on with what they were doing before. I'm not speaking to all people. I'm saying that that's safe. But God isn't calling us to what's safe. If you read the Qur'an, and I'm not talking about my translation. If you don't like my translation, don't read it. Read any translation. Look at the model. Is that the model? Is it? No, it's not. Ibrahim called out, Nuh called out, Muhammad called out, Lut called out of a society to stand up and speak out. That's the model. And my message is that this remains the model. It's not about joining a big cozy talking shop where you can just sit around and trade, various hadith stories, or the quote-unquote Qur'an alone equivalent of this. These are talking shops. These are, in my opinion, a waste of time. I'm interested in doers, and I have a small but growing number of doers who are helping me, and I thank God for them. But the rest, I have no obligation to spend my time trying to convince them to do the right thing. If I said to you, look, there's this investment opportunity. If you put your money into this, in a year's time, you're going to have 1,000,000% on this. And people are going, oh, no, I don't really think so. It's not for me. I don't. Fine. But God promises us the best rewards. He promises the garden. He promises us eternity. I believe that. And if you believe it, then you're going to act on that. And if you don't believe it, then you're not going to act on it. The Qur'an says, it's very clear, Muhammad can only reach the believers. I mean, people do change. They do come around. People are, quote unquote, converted. But it's God who guides. I can't guide anybody. I can't force anyone to think anything. All I can do is do what I'm doing. And what I can also do is call people either to go out and do what I'm doing or to support me in what I'm doing. I don't mind which. But do something, because this life is short. You will experience hardship. The Qur'an says, it tells you. Do you think that you will enter the garden without going through what the people before you have been through? Don't see it as a loss. See it, if it's at all possible, as a kind of a compliment. I mean, for ourselves, we had lost our friends. I lost all of my network of support, and I certainly lost any job opportunities. And it may not surprise you to know that I had good opportunities. I didn't find it difficult to find extremely well-paying work, but I felt that I had a better thing to do with my life than just to get to God and say, well, you know what, God, I knew that I was supposed to do this other thing, but I wanted to buy a nice house. I wanted to be popular with my friends. I wanted not to be called names. I didn't want people saying nasty things about me online that are not true. So what I really decided to do was to fear men. We took our decisions, and I advise people, I exhort people to choose the best. Now, a lot of people are sitting on the fence, and that's what I find. And the Qur'an talks about those sorts of people as well. And this is from Surah 4, 141 through 143. Those who watch and wait with regard to you, if there be victory for you from God, they say, have we not been with you? And if there be for those who spurn guidance while claiming virtue a portion, they say, have we not earned your affection by defending you against the believers? And God will judge between you on the day of resurrection. And God does not make for those who spurn guidance while claiming virtue any way against the believers. The waverers seek to deceive God, but He deceives them. And when they come to the duty, they come to be seen of men, and remember not God save a little, wavering in between, neither towards these nor towards those. And he whom God causes to go astray, thou wilt not find for him a way. That's 141 through 143. I think that's quite clear. And for people like myself and other believers also, there's nothing we can do. You can't guide other people. You just have to accept that this is the reality of it. But one does one's job. A few things I'd like to say about numbers, especially at this time. People are conditioned to think that if you have a lot of supporters, then it means that what you're doing is somehow more valid. My own brother, who, when I was deeply engrossed in this work and going through various hardships, but he came to me and he said, you know, I think what you're doing is fantastic, but you know what you should do is you should join some ecumenical group, and you could all get together and they'll compromise a little bit and you compromise a little bit, and then you can all be a part of this big group. I said, I'm not interested in that. If you have truth, why would you want to do that? And his perception was that this was arrogance. However, it isn't. It's not about numbers. Being in a big cozy group is not going to make anything more true. God says in the Qur'an that if you follow the majority of men, that you will go astray. It's not about numbers. So I'm going to read a little bit now that addresses some of this. Chapter 9, 41 through 47. Go forth, light or heavy, and strive with your wealth and your lives for the cause of God. That is best for you, if you would know. Had it been goods nearby and a short journey, they would have followed thee. But far for them was the destination, and they will swear by God, had we been able, we would have set out with you. They destroy their souls, and God knows that they are liars. God pardon thee. Why grantest thou them leave, until it is made clear to thee who speaks the truth, and thou knowest the liars? No leave do those who believe in God and the last day ask of thee from striving with their wealth and their lives. And God knows those of prudent fear. They but ask leave of thee who believe not in God and the last day, and whose hearts doubt. So they in their doubt are wavering. And had they wished to go forth, they would have fully prepared for it. But God was averse to their being sent forth and held them back. And it was said, sit with those that sit. Had they gone forth among you, they would have increased you only in confusion, and been active in your midst, seeking means of denial for you. That's 9:41 through 47. Now the note that I have here is that I understand this verse, and by implication those following, at an oblique angle to the traditionalist. For him, the messenger is chided here for granting leave not to join the campaign. Sahih International, for example, has it, why did you grant them permission, parenthesis, to remain behind, parenthesis, you should not have, continuing, until it was evident to you who were truthful and you knew, parenthesis, who were, continue, the liars. So what he's done there, what they've done is they've inserted enough things which are not in the text in order to make it seem to say actually the opposite to what it does say. The chiding tone which the traditionalist correctly detects is actuated by a concern opposite to the one he assumes. It is that the messenger has granted leave to join the campaign to unworthy men. The focus of the passage is not to prevent those who wish to opt out from doing so. It is to get rid of such people as quickly as possible and prevent them from joining, but to do so on the basis of proper criteria, which is itself a practice with Quranic precedent. See 249 through 250, which is the story of Talut, where they are taking water and he's getting, as they cross the river. The Quranic method is get rid of these people as quickly as possible. It's not build up a huge stock of people. And again, if you look at the general Quranic tendency, the model is a few people, sometimes only one, sometimes one family. It's a minority of cases where a lot of people stand up and speak out for God, or who repent. I can think of two cases off the top of my head, Yunus and Muhammad. And actually both Yunus and Muhammad were expecting full destruction. However, in those two cases, God reprieved the people. Now, in this case, at this time, I don't know. And before people jump up and down and say, well, you see, you're not a messenger. No, I'm a guy, all right? I'm just doing my job like any other believer is supposed to be doing his job. I refer you to my YouTube video on the companions of the cave to illustrate why this is the job of believers. Those people were believers. I'm a believer. I hope you are too. If you are interested in reading the handbook of the believers, then I refer you to the Qur'an, and please don't be limited by my translation. Read any translation and you will see that the model is one or two or a very small number of people standing up, speaking truth to power, and then the punishments of God becoming binding. So that's just how it is. So to continue, it's not about numbers. See any translation. The next point I'd like to make is that truth has a power. An idea whose time has come, you can't stop it. And what I've learned from my time doing this is that the people who are the best supporters of my work on the broader spectrum are Muslims. They're people from Islamic backgrounds. They get it. I'm not saying all do, but many do. And they are, without doubt, the people who have been the most ready to say, well, how can I help? And that's what I like to hear. And the Quranic model is to set out your argument and then challenge the unbelievers to do their worst. That's the model. It's not hiding behind or finding some safety in this world. It is putting all of your chips on God. That's the model. So to go back to my initial statement about people expressing their concern for me, I do appreciate it. But you can't protect me, and my own timidity is not going to protect me from the judgments of God, and it's not going to protect you from them either. I'll tell you what encourages me. I'll tell you what I really like. I'll tell you what cheers me up. Somebody contacted me recently, and what he'd done was he'd written a book. He'd written a book about the miracles in the Qur'an, and he'd listens to this channel. He didn't write to me and ask me whether he should do it and ask me to help him. He just did it. And I scanned through the book. There are bits of it I personally don't agree with. It doesn't matter. He had initiative. He went out, he used his skills and his abilities, and he did something. I see people are creating websites referring to, in total or in part, some of the work that I'm doing here. They're doing something. Fantastic. There are people who donate, who help me. I mean, it shouldn't be as surprising that when you do this, the system closes down to you. And there are people who recognize this. And I am genuinely appreciative of that. But you know what? Do you know what I find? The people who have helped with an amount which we could do something with, I can't find those people to thank them. Or maybe you have one email exchange. It's not like they suddenly think that they're going to chew up all of your time. They did it for God. They know where their reward lies. And they're right. So just getting into the final part of this talk, I'm going through a last edit, and I'm going to update the files on the book. I've spent the last 2 months doing this. I've had some great help from 2 or 3 people donating their time. One particular person who's a professional editor went through some of the articles, well, most of the articles, went through a lot of what is called front matter of the book and professionally edited it. It doesn't matter how good a writer you are, you're supposed to have an editor. Now, from my position, what I've been doing since I started this project is I've had to do everything. Website design, marketing, trying to get an audience, writing for Russia Today to, leverage to people to come, blah, 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 blah. Absolutely everything. Okay, fine, whatever. It's a full-time job times 3, actually. So to have people come forward and say, I've got this skill, fantastic. What this person did really lifted my game on this part of the project. A brother who instantly, right at the beginning, he said, I want to help, and he has been consistent. This guy, his help is always timely and real. A lot of people, quote unquote, help, but what they really want is more attention. This guy solves problems for me. And if he can't solve it, he'll go away and keep doing it until he has solved it. These are people that I am so grateful for, and they get it. So I'm looking for a small number or a big number if possible, but these are what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in people just want to talk, because there's loads of those. There's thousands of websites out there. You can talk until Judgment Day. It won't change anything. About the comments issue, I did turn off comments for a while because I was finding it personally very depressing. And however, I've had an offer of help again from this chap who has been instant in his assistance and consistent in his support. And he's very kindly said that he would administrate or help administrate this for me. I have to concentrate on my core tasks, However, on balance, it's felt that it's better to leave these things on. But he's going to, and I'm going to, look at these things once a week and put them on or not put them on. And we will, block, without really getting into it, people who are rude and insulting and all of that sort of stuff. You're welcome to criticize me and my work, but if you want to do it in an abusive way, you are going to have to find your own platform for that. So I think that's fair. I'm also not going to respond particularly to provocative questions. However, if you do have questions, things you'd like me to address, feel free. Say, Sam, would you do one on this, or would you do a video on that? And if I get enough on particular questions, sure, I'll do it, like the one I'm doing now. I've had quite a lot of comments on this sort of question, so I'm now addressing this question. If you want to help, then help. But, it has to be something that is really help, because I'm not in the entertainment business, and I also don't have anybody who really supports that, could support what I'm doing so that I could concentrate on this, not even at a minimum level. So if I don't get that, then I'm going to have to, obviously spend a lot more of my time working in a substandard job in order to support my family, because that's the reality. As far as I'm concerned, once this, upgrade of the book is done, I've done my job. If God wants to help me continue, he's going to have to provide that. In any case, I'm locked into the results of my decisions, and I don't mind. And I'll tell you why. It says at 261 through 262, the example of those who spend their wealth for the cause of God is like the example of a grain which sprouts 7 ears. In each ear 100 grains, and God increases manifold to whom he wills, and God encompasses, knows. Those who spend their wealth for the cause of God, and follow not what they have spent with condescension or hindrance, they have their reward with their Lord, and they need not fear, nor will they regret. So, in summary, don't worry about me. I do thank you for your kind comments of concern. Worry about yourselves. Invest in this life in the best way that you can for the life to come. But what I can say is this. What is really great about this path is that if you make the decision to serve God, put God first, is that some things change. Yeah, you lose your friends, probably. Your family will take on a different dynamic to how it was before. Certainly in terms of career and all of those sorts of things, there's hardship. There's no question about that. If you don't get that, then chances are you haven't really done anything. However, there's an upside. The first thing is you are now putting God first. You're not fighting yourself. Fighting the shaitan is hard enough, but fighting God is impossible. So once you do this, you have a sense of peace that you will not find anywhere else. Your actions have an eternal reward, and you have the peace of knowing that you have your own integrity. And it's a bit of an old-fashioned word, right up there with honour, not used much these days. However, integrity, when you know that what you say and what you do and what you believe in, they're in alignment, you have integrity and you access a power that other people don't have. And that's why I don't fear. I don't fear. If God is going to take me, if I'm going to get murdered by, a melee of ill-educated lunatics, okay. I was going to die at that time anyway. Better to die in the way of God. That's a privilege. It's not a liability. I've had to take choices, difficult choices. I write, as a lot of people will know, or wrote for Russia Today. This was about my only form of income, actually. I had to stop because Russia Today would not allow me to write on particular subjects, including 9/11 as an inside job, which it quite clearly is. And if that's the case, if it's just a matter of producing entertainment, well, then go and write for the Guardian or the Telegraph or the Independent or any other, any other of a whole number of New World Order controlled entertainment outlets. I mean, this is really just the entertainment division of the military industrial complex. If that's what you're about, if you're just about creating entertainment, then go and write for them. I won't do it. Is it easy? No, it's not. But I do recommend it. Oh man, where are you going? Well, I'll tell you where we're going. We're going to the Zinger. And I sincerely advise people to think on how they want to arrive. That's all for now. If you're listening on YouTube, you can download my full translation of the Qur'an free using the button in the top right hand corner, or buy the hardback there at 10% less than on Amazon. I also encourage you to sign up for the Qur'anite Plus newsletter on the site to get occasional micro updates. Check my site at skypetalking.com for lessons and more. Like if you like, comment if you have something constructive to say, and subscribe to get more each week. And use the link in the drop down below to donate if you would like to help me keep doing this. And remember, this life is short. Eternity is long. If you want good trees, plant good seeds.